Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of our 8% Roundtable discussions. Today we have the last member of our group, Kennedy Hobson. And Kennedy, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Kennedy Hobson. I went to school with these beautiful women. Also, I am a speech language pathologist working in an elementary school.
And there are two other members are not here today, but they're here in spirit. So we're going to make them proud today. We have three guests today, which is really exciting. So our first guest is Jodine Jackson. She is a speech language pathologist. She was one of three Black students in the 2016-2018 University of Kansas CSD cohort. So a very different experience than our experience, which was what we discussed last time. She worked in a skilled nursing facility with trach and AAC patients, and she's currently a travel SLP. So it'll be really interesting to kind of get her perspective on some of the issues that we find very prevalent today. And you guys submitted some questions, and we also came up with some questions that we want to talk about with our guests today. So we're very excited.
Yeah, and joining Jodine during her time on our Zoom call will also be one of her professors, which is Dr. Nancy Brady. So we're actually very appreciative of her taking the time to join this call and answer the questions we have for her. So I'll do a quick introduction for Dr. Nancy Brady. She is a professor and chair in the Department of Speech, Language, and Hearing Sciences at the University of Kansas. So she was one of Jodine's professors during her time at KU. She graduated from KU and has been on the faculty at the University of Kansas since 2000. Her research is also supported by the National Institutes of Health and the Institute of Educational Sciences. So we'll have both of them on, which will be really great for conversation. Reminder, this was a majority white cohort, majority white university, and a majority white state. So we'll have the perspective of a professor and one of the Black students during this time. So we're very excited. All right, so we are going to go ahead and admit Dr. Nancy Brady, and we will ask her her questions. Let's admit her now. Hello?
She's connecting now. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, we can.
Hey, so we just did a short introduction for you prior to you joining.
Okay.
And so before we start, we just want to have you speak about yourself before we start asking questions. And also Jodine will join us sometime soon. So we're waiting on her to join as well.
So you said you wanted me to introduce myself?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Nancy Brady, and I am a professor at University of Kansas, hence my lovely fake background. And I'm also the chairperson right now in our department. And my area of research is in people with minimal verbal skills, mostly kids with autism. So I've been at KU for a long time, like 20 years. And so really looking forward to a chance to talk about these really critical issues with you guys.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time to join.
Really, thank you.
Thank you.
So our first question for you, we have about maybe 5 minutes per question. So
okay.
Keep that in mind. From your time working at University of Kansas, how do you feel the CSD program has tried to support diverse teaching approaches and or appealing to an increasingly diverse cohort? If none, have there been explicit conversations around this topic? Or has it been challenging to diversify the cohort and the staff within a majority white state?
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, but we have made some specific efforts. So we have a large part of a mission statement devoted to trying to increase diversity and embrace diversity. We started a lecture series about 3 years ago in honor of one of our emeritus faculty, and it's an annual lecture series, and we bring in speakers to talk about issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We had 2 years ago, we had Julie Washington. This last year, we had Shamika Brown, Shamika Stanford. She was awesome. And so that's one ongoing effort. And that guest person stays a couple days and meets with different student groups. And we really try to, learn as much from those scholars as we can. 2 of our faculty have been diversity scholars. It's a program that the university puts on where they faculty compete, and if they're selected, they have a year-long program where they go to different trainings and then they bring back information to us. So at every faculty meeting, we go through some different exercises led by them. So things like bringing in our syllabi and counting how many articles were actually written by researchers of color, very small number in my count. So even things like that have been just really eye-opening. And what else? And so we always discuss diversity at each faculty meeting and each intercampus program. One of our faculty has a grant from the Office of Education looking at specifically Native American and Indian children that students have been supported on that grant that are interested in lots of diversity issues. So that's been a great way to try to recruit some students to KU. So we really, but I guess one of the things that we've done that's been most impactful, I think, is we moved the GRE requirement for our grad students. And then all of our, we've had quite a turnover in membership on our graduate admissions committee. And I'd say most of us are really committed to trying to promote having more diverse students. So we individually, do what we can to invite and recruit diverse students to our program.
Question, how easy is a process like that, changing the GRE requirement? What does that take? How long does that take? And is it a voting ordeal? Oh, I actually add Jodine right now. So Jodine's gonna join us as well now.
Okay, good. I'll answer while she's kind of adding in too. So it was surprisingly easy. I think, people have kind of put it off and thought, oh, changing policy is such a huge thing, but it was not that big of a deal. Hi, Jodine. I'm just talking about how we took away the GRE requirement, and I think we had to wait, a few months, but it was not, and it was ended up being a unanimous decision. So, I think we kind of drug our heels thinking it was going to be difficult. And once there was a will, it was really pretty easy to do. And it was already in this was the first time we had our admissions without a GRE requirement. And we did get more applications, and we got more applications from diverse students. So I think it's already having an effect.
So there's no GRE requirement for the University of Kansas?
For our program, it's based, each program does it, right? So, and
everyone listening, this is for everyone listening, all the students interested in a master's program, listen to this.
Yes, we want you. Apply.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So our second question is, when you have Black students present within the cohort, is there awareness amongst the staff that the Black student experience is coupled with the experience of also being a minority, and what that may come with? If awareness is present amongst the staff, what steps are taken once that awareness is present?
I think this is an area that we have not done a very good job of personally. So I think that, at least for me, I thought, great, come here and we're all really nice, and, we don't think we're racist and everything will just be fine, but it hasn't been. So I think we're really trying to change some of those policies and trying to, or not policies, but procedures, and trying to have some more ongoing mentorship. Ideally, we'll get enough students of color so that we can have mentorship within students of colors as well as any of our other students and faculty too. But we haven't, I don't think we have really done as good of a job of making the environment as welcoming once students get here. So I think personally, I was so focused on just having students, come to campus that I really, this is what we need to, an area that we really need to focus on more.
Okay, thank you for the honesty on that one.
Yeah. And I think it's just to add on to that, I feel like it's a process, that first step of getting those students in, that's an essential step. And I think, you can only grow from there, and perfection is not expected right away. So I think as long as people are admitting to, where the weaknesses are, I think that's where you can grow. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, we had a few student panels that, so we have had some students self-organized, which is awesome. And then, those of us who've been listening have just really been learning how much we have to do to make our program and the University of Kansas more welcoming.
Right.
Okay, Hanifa. So we'll alternate questions.
Sure.
Jodine and Dr.
Jodine, I'm going to ask you your questions. Is there anything you wanted to say to introduce yourself before you started? I did a little introduction, but maybe if you could just say a little bit about yourself and then we'll get started. I think you're muted, just so you know.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. I just want to say that my answers to these questions are based on my personal experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be different for other people, but that's all.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of intro you gave me, but I'm a speech pathologist. Currently, I'm a travel speech pathologist. So I kind of get to be in different places and experience different people, and that's something I'm interested in doing. So yeah.
Great.
Welcome.
So our first question for you is, what was your overall experience like at University of Kansas, including your clinical experiences? And then did you feel that there were any supports specifically put in place for students of color?
So overall, I think it was a great experience. There were challenges along the way. I think that KU did a good job of providing a variety of clinical experiences, like giving us a choice on what kind of clinical settings we wanted to go into, and kind of allowed us to tailor the experiences based on our interests. It also kind of got me out of my comfort zone, because when I went to school, I wanted to work with adults, but I got like some clinical experiences with peds, and like one of them was in a school for children in underserved populations, which I thought was really cool, and I kind of fell in love with that. Also, I found like opportunities for working with AAC, augmentative alternative communication, something that I wasn't super aware of or interested in. I gained a love and passion for that as well. It was challenging in the beginning for me to make that adjustment from going to Georgia State, which was primarily diverse, and then coming to KU. I was one of the 3 students of color in our program, so it was tough to make that adjustment for me. There weren't any really, though there weren't like specific things in place for students of color, I did have like one of my instructors kind of look out for me and check in with me based on my personal experience, like me being a Black woman in Kansas. I thought that was helpful. Also, Dr. Brady was a helpful resource for me, because she kind of connected me with a professor on campus from a similar background as myself, and from that connection I was able to connect with other students and other like grad programs from like Black students and different backgrounds as well. So I thought that was really something that was helpful.
To make a
and it was really good.
I think it's important, like the previous question I asked Dr. Brady,
Uh-huh.
if the awareness is present, what steps are taken? So
Uh-huh.
we appreciate that personal step you took to introduce her to faculty. And when you're aware that she may want to connect with someone that she can
Mhm.
connect with. So I think
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was really helpful, and thank you for that, Dr. Brady. So,
Oh,
yeah, even though there wasn't specific things in place, I still kind of use my friends and other like professors as a resource.
Great, great. So one
Mhm.
of the things we talked about in the last episode was that there's like barriers to entry for students of color in these programs, and there's also sometimes barrier to success. One of those
Mhm.
is like being able to navigate a master's program is like that hidden curriculum that people don't usually talk about,
Mhm.
and that can be a challenge. Looking back, what would you suggest to a Black student that they do to prepare themselves to make it successfully through a master's program with all or majority white students and faculty?
So first of all, of course, I would educate them, and that's what I did to myself to kind of mentally prepare myself that this is the field that we work in. It's not diverse, it's very limited diversity, and just kind of make yourself aware of that. And I personally wouldn't look at it as a barrier, like my color being a barrier for success in the program. I kind of would just look at it as a tool to educate people and challenge not only your peers, but your professors to kind of see a different perspective from their own. And I also would remind them to just know that they're contributing to improving the diversity in our field, not only through just being another person of color in our field, but also being an example to our patients, to our families, to our communities. So things like that. Just kind of know that change kind of starts from yourself and you being an example for everybody else. So also, I would suggest finding like some kind of mentor or ally like I did, who's culturally sensitive and willing to hold space for you to have those conversations without judgment and just kind of being open minded. And friends, like, though I had a diverse set of friends. I was friends with the other students of color in my program, and also friends that kind of aligned with not really my beliefs, but were more open minded and willing to have those conversations, willing to be vulnerable and say, like, I have these biases. How can I be willing? How can I better serve my clients and my patients? So, yeah, I think just kind of aligning yourself with like more open minded people, and people that are willing to have those
How do
hard
you feel that?
conversations. Those are good for my mental health. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel like that alignment starts? Like, is it you sit next to them in class, or do you just see them in the hallway? Is it a group project where you're actually put in a group where the professor assigned the group and now you're friends? Like, how does that alignment occur for you?
that's a great question. For me, the friends that I kind of align with, one of them was another Black student from our program, and we became roommates. And then another friend I worked with her, so she was more outgoing than I was, and she kind of, introduced herself to me and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of just based on how you are personally, I think, because I'm not as outgoing as everyone else, but um, I don't know. Yeah, that's a great question. I would say maybe I did gain some friends from group projects as well. So yeah, group projects, kind of clinical experiences is a good one because we're in the beginning we kind of are put in either groups or pairs for our initial clinical experiences.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
that's those times where just getting to choose your group, you
Mhm.
might always fall back with the same people. I know
Mhm.
we did that too, but in
Mhm.
our
Yeah.
program, but sometimes being forced to be put with people that you don't normally talk to. I mean, that's how I made some of my best friends in grad school too.
Mhm. Yeah.
One of them we had on our last episode, and it's like you get put together and you find that
Hmm.
those people, although they might not look like you actually have the same values and you're willing to
Yes.
uplift each other. So I think that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. V, you want to ask your next question?
Yeah, so we have about 8 minutes left, so we have to be cognizant of time. Our
Mhm.
next question is for Dr. Nancy Brady. And so, what do you feel like your individual and also as a collective, the cohort, the program's plans to expand staff, students, and teaching approaches to become more diverse?
Yeah, in terms of staff, it's an ongoing problem. We just really have, it seems like the last few searches that we've been on, we really have had no faculty applicants that were people of color. So that has been discouraging. So we really need to, as you guys all know, grow the profession, grow the number of researchers for us. So definitely, I think we can do more in terms of staffing though. So I know we have some staff turnover coming up in the next year, so we can definitely try to hire within the community. So should be able to recruit a little bit more diversity at that level. In terms of students too, I mentioned some things that we're trying to do to increase recruitment, and we're also going to local high schools and too. So where the university is in Lawrence is really not very diverse, but we're very close to Kansas City, which is very diverse, and Topeka, and so we're going out to high schools in those areas. And as many of you know, very few people even know about our profession at any level. So just trying to increase awareness, trying to go to more health fairs and things, because people think they want to go to healthcare, but they don't even know about speech pathology. So those kinds of things. Then, so sort of more immediately too, we're doing some things for upcoming cohort too, to try to increase the sensitivity of all of us and trying to increase more discussion. We have a new dean at the Med Center who is in charge of diversity issues, and she's awesome, and she's holding some different open forums and conversations for everybody across the allied health profession. So we're going to take advantage of her expertise and try to have some more open dialogue, and especially with all of the recent events, and try to keep things moving in a positive direction.
Okay. And
Okay.
the last
Oh, go
question
ahead.
is, well, we have to actually switch to Jolene. So
Okay. Okay. So for Jodine, what are some things that you believe that KU can do differently to support diverse students, enhance diverse clinical experiences, and teaching methods?
So, like I mentioned, overall, it's a good program. I think they do a good job of preparing us clinically to enter the field. But I do have suggestions on how they can improve their cultural awareness, and also just in academics related to different cultures. So, to improve cultural awareness, I think it'll be beneficial to promote opportunities that allow the students to interact from individuals from diverse cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds. That will help in improving the cultural awareness and sensitivity. I don't know if Dr. Brady touched on it, just like the clinical experiences, maybe going into, like she said, health fairs and things like that to kind of improve the students' awareness of different cultures. Academically, for our multicultural course that we had, I would suggest more opportunities for real world experiences, where the students go outside the program into the community around them to get involved. For example, I went to a Black History event on campus, so kind of stepping out of the master's program and going out into KU. And I've done like volunteering in the for like some event in the Native American community, just like babysitting the kids while the parents did their meeting that they had. So like cool things like that kind of allow us to experience different cultures, kind of see where everyone is coming from. These opportunities may not be specific to speech, but it's helpful to just kind of get a different perspective. I know like in our class, I personally had a not so great experience just talking about certain things and reading in the textbook. I don't think it's helpful to read about different cultures sometimes. Like when I was reading about my own culture, it was kind of offensive to me a little bit. So I think that kind of getting those real life experiences are very beneficial for improving cultural sensitivity and cultural awareness.
So what I hear is like making diverse experiences a requirement within the program, maybe not an option, but a requirement.
Yeah, making it a requirement.
That we serve diverse students when we become speech pathologists. It's not an option. We have
to
help. So it should be a requirement that we learn and experience these before we get out into the real world.
Yeah, because I think that
grad school.
I was gonna say diverse, not just being Black and white, diverse being, different cultures, different religions, just outside of that Black and white, thing. Just there's so many other avenues of diversity that we can also explore within our programs that I think are even more neglected than, you know what I mean?
Especially travel SLPs. Jodine and I are travel SLPs, and we see so much than just what we experienced in grad school. So it's important to be prepared for all types of population. On every end.
Yeah, because I think that the limit, like staying in your own bubble, kind of allows for those biases. Like even for myself, middle class, like staying in our own bubble allows for us to have our own biases, which can impact our patients. So it's important to step outside of ourselves and get different experiences and perspectives to kind of allow us to serve our patients better. So
Okay, we have one more minute. We wanted to know if Dr. Brady had a question for you, Jodine, or for all of us, and we have about a minute to answer that question.
Okay. Time pressure. So well, I would like you to, Jodine, to feel free to continue to let me know things that the program, and that I personally too, because you worked in my lab too. So I'd like to know more about, if there are things that I kind of saw that as a way to sort of nurture you and bring you into a friendly environment too. So but that was an assumption on my part.
That was great. No, that was great. I made great friends, and that was a safe space to talk and have those conversations as well at work. So
Well, I'm happy, but I want to know about the things that you can do to be better too. So and then also one specific thing, you had a comment about the readings, which I could totally get. But if there are some other readings, sometimes I think readings about cultures can be really helpful. So if there are some other readings that you think would be more helpful, that would spur some productive conversations for not just that class, but again, the faculty, we have a regular book discussion too. So we try to pick books that'll help us have those difficult conversations, and also, and if you guys have some suggestions along those lines for.
In the readings, you're talking about our textbook readings or like actual books?
Well, I don't want to answer for Jodine, but I think she was saying that what was written in the textbook about her own culture was.
Yeah, it was just, I feel like it's kind of generalized, and not really specific to. That's why I think it's helpful to get away from that, because that makes me, like me reading about a different culture makes me have an umbrella assumption, and it may not be the most accurate depiction. But
And getting outside of textbooks, maybe just because we read a book in our AAC class, it was a novel, but it was like a real life, like a biography. That was like a great experience for us. And I think so moving outside of textbooks, if those are limited, then going to those first person accounts, those can be so much more personal and so much more, you know, sensitive because it's the person, it's their own voice.
Right.
So maybe that's something that you guys could look into.
Yeah. I think that would be helpful too.
Well, we really appreciate you both joining us today and the insight and just taking the time out of your day, out of your week, out of your comfort zone to join us and answer questions. We really appreciate you, Dr. Nancy Brady and Jodine. And this will be posted, so we'll notify you later for you to watch the video. And we thank you all sincerely for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting. This is really great.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
I miss you, Jodine.
I miss you too.
Bye.
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 All right.
She's actually in queue, so Kennedy is going to introduce our next guest.
All right. So our next guest is Miss Joan Gage. She is a speech language pathologist in a predominantly Black middle school in Atlanta. She also serves on the board of the Brighter DeKalb Foundation and is a certified sign language interpreter.
Okay, and she was actually my supervisor during a clinical experience, so I really love her insight and appreciate her so much. I'm going to admit her now. She's joining.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
How you doing? Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. Can you see me?
No, I can't see you.
Okay, wait a minute. I got to figure out what's going on here. How's that?
Yay!
There we go. Oh my goodness, how have you been?
I've been good. How are you?
Good. Oh, being me, just hanging out, doing the things.
Miss Gage, these are my grad sisters, Hanifa and Kennedy. They're all on the panel with me today. So Kennedy actually introduced you, but we want you to give yourself a brief introduction to everyone as well, so that way they know a little bit more about you, where you're from, things like that.
Okay, well, my name is Joan Gage. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I was for 15 years an educational sign language interpreter for the deaf. I changed careers and in 2013 graduated with my master's in speech language pathology and have been a speech pathologist since. So that's 7 years in speech pathology, 15 in interpreting for deaf or deaf education.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will move forward with asking you these questions. We have 3 questions that we have prepared for you, and we are going to set a time limit of maybe 5 minutes each because we don't want the video to get too long.
No problem. Yeah, stop me. Cut me off if I get talking too much. You just say, that's enough. That's enough. Moving on.
The first question that we have created for you is, what would you suggest that a white SLP do to better understand the students, families, and community in which they serve? Examples of these could be resources, activities, programs, etc.
Okay, well, that's a really good question. There are, just by numbers, you will know that there are probably going to be many more white female speech pathologists than any other nationality, race, creed. And so these people are going to go into areas where it is not their first culture. They may have no understanding or awareness. And so first and foremost, what I would say is understand that people are people. Number one, before anything else, people are people. And what does that mean? Well, if you have a child and you give birth to a child and you raise that child, you have invested a lot of time, energy, resources, funds into that child. understand first and foremost, if that child comes into your school as a speech pathologist, they just aren't showing up for the day. They have a whole family unit linked to them. Do your work. Contact these families. Let them know that you're there. Ask them questions. If you don't know the answer, ask them. I cannot think of a time that I've ever approached anybody in a minority situation with an inquisitive question about their culture or the meaning behind something that was said or their behaviors in certain situations, traditions, holidays, etc. If I ask them a question, I can't think of a time that they have not been actually thrilled or excited to give that information out to me. For one, they appreciate that I've asked them. I've gone to the source. And for two, they love sharing about their life. That is their life and their culture and their traditions. So I would first keep your mindset that every family is invested in their child, and don't forget that. And two, include them in your approach to that child. So I hope that answers it. I did come up with a book that may help, and one of the books is it's called Understanding Families: Supportive Approaches to Diversity, Disability, and Risk. And the authors are Marcy J. Hansen and Eleanor W. Lynch. This looks like a really wonderful, informative book that if you don't have that knowledge and you feel shaky in that area, this is a good first step. But I would say your parents are your number one resource. Do not be afraid to include them. And in fact, they'll respect you for including them. So.
Thank you for that information.
No problem.
So the second question that we have is, what are some ways that we can best differentiate a disorder versus a dialect, especially when working with students who have heavy dialects, meaning like African American English versus standard American English?
This is going to sound like a repeat, but my first go-to, if I'm looking at someone, say, with a speech impediment or what we suspect is a speech impediment, but yet it may be dialectal, go to the parent. Go to the nurturing parent. Now, I'm going to say it's typically the mother, but not necessarily always the case. Listen to how the mother speaks. A child learns their first language through their nurturing parent, most often a mother, but not necessarily. And so always remember, maybe the father was the nurturing parent at home. Find that out also.
Or
but
the parent or the aunts or whoever the guardian.
Right, grandma. It could be grandma, whoever the nurturing that birth through 5 years old. Who was that person? And listen to how they speak. Do they have a dialect? And if they have a dialect that is pronounced, you can probably be confident that you're being influenced by a dialectal difference, not a disorder. And so just as in the first one, always check back with the parents. And that's going to give you your best go-to as to what you're looking at. So.
And I think that just means to show, like, you need to have a very well-rounded assessment. You have to have a parent interview, a guardian interview, also your standardized tests, and just having that well-rounded assessment or initial assessment will give you the best results for how you need to move forward in reading and interpreting those results.
Correct.
Too often we see students who are over-identified in our culture.
Yes, and keep that in mind. And in fact, I just said that this year, all young Black males are not disabled, and understand that first and foremost, they are not. And if you're seeing that over and over and over again, then you need to question, how are you testing them? because, and Vanessa can attribute to this, one of the things I say is standardized American English was developed in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now we don't go bragging about that, but at one time, all of the phone system used to be held through operators. All of those operators were hired from Grand Rapids, Michigan, because they all spoke standardized American English, which is fine. But understand that a child in southern Georgia is not from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and should not be judged based on those standards. And you have to keep that in your mind at all times. So
I totally agree. Those are words of wisdom. I'll be using.
Love her passion and how like she just knows random.
it's just you just are like, listen, everybody's not disabled. Everybody's not, okay? I know you're really good at what you do. Everybody's not disabled. So keeping that in mind.
Like you. Okay, so the third question that I have is, do you have any tips on navigating IEP meetings with parents who you may realize are a little bit skeptical about trusting a white speech language pathologist when serving their child?
Well, yes. And yes, I've had this happen. In fact, it was just about 3 years ago. I had an IEP meeting. I wasn't expecting this. So normally when I get ready to go into an IEP meeting, I had not met this parent yet. I had not had any interaction. I knew there was interaction between the teacher and the parent, and there was becoming some unspoken conflict starting to come up. So I'm already coming into a tense situation. Now, mind you, I'm in a middle school. And so, and the child was just coming into middle school. So you also have to keep in mind the family's experience. I don't know what they've experienced from 1st through 5th grade. Now, whatever they've experienced, they've now come into a new school, all new teachers. They have a child that's disabled. They're coming to the meeting with all the teachers and them. Side note here, try never in your IEP meetings to have all the teachers on one side and the parent on the other. We are a team. We are a team, and we make decisions as a team, and a parent should not come in feeling like it's them against me, because that's not going to be healthy for any relationship, especially this one. So I go into the meeting. Now, this is the first time this parent has met me. And you could tell, she didn't say anything right off the bat, but you could tell that she was not comfortable with me walking in the door. Now, I will let you know also, I'm about just under 6 foot tall. So not only am I very white, I'm very tall, and I can be over, I could seem large when I come in. And so we were talking about the child's progress, and the teacher went first, and the child was not doing what they felt the child could do. I'd also like to make a side note here. A lot of times you're going to hear complaints from teachers and people around the child about how the child can't do this or doesn't do this or blah, 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 blah. I would just let you know right now, that child, if that child's not failing, why are you even there? The reason you're there is because whatever the school has set up as the educational means for that child has not worked. You are there because there's a problem. So pointing out all the problems sometimes is not the best thing to do. We already know there's a problem. You wouldn't have been involved had there not been a problem. So of course they were pointing out all of the problems, and you can see the mom getting more and more defensive because she was hearing it as a reflection of maybe her parenting or her involvement, whatever the reason. She was becoming defensive. Recognize what that looks like also. So you don't add and pile on. We need to learn to get things calmed down, not ramp them up. And so it became my turn. And I don't think I got one or two sentences out. And she just looked straight at me and she goes, "You will never understand what it's like to be an African American male growing up here." That's absolutely true. There is nothing I could say. I will never, ever, ever know what that's like. And so I believe that's kind of what I said. You're right. I got nothing to say about that, because you are absolutely right. I will never, ever understand that. But what I do understand is the human brain and how things work. And when I see a deficit, sometimes we can find that deficit and find ways to support it, which allows this child to be able to become successful at what he's doing in that moment. Our job is to kind of figure out where the deficits are and provide that support. So you'll see what I did there was not, I didn't confront her. I didn't try to tell her she was wrong. She was absolutely not wrong. She was right. But I did want to support what I knew and what I could provide. I could provide education. I could provide understanding. And I will tell you, it's taken years, 3 years with this family. But I just spoke with this family at the end of the teletherapy that we all did, and this child was involved in that. And this mom told me, I didn't think we were going to do much, but we've come a long way. And I said, well, I can't do anything unless you're right there with me. And this child is right there with me. We are a team. She goes, well, I do feel like I am part of a team. And that, from that initial 2 sentences to where we ended up, I mean, it would almost bring tears to your eyes. You can connect with families. There's skin is only skin deep. We are all humans, and understanding that we are a team and we're all on the same team. That's really important to making them feel included, understanding that they have invested years into this child, and I am only one little blip in the rest of the years to come. So that's.
It would have been really easy for you to be super defensive at that moment, but I think that the way you decided to handle it kind of opened the way for you guys to have that growth.
Yeah, because she didn't know me, and I could start to, well, I've been educated, and I have a degree, and I am this, and I am. She didn't need to hear that at that moment. She needed affirmation that her child, her young male African American child, was going through an experience that not everybody enjoys, and understanding that she also needed to know who was on her side and what help they could provide. And I just tried to say, this is what I can provide. And I think she could see through that honesty that I wasn't a challenge to her. We're on the same side. And yeah, sometimes parents are going to need to vent. Don't take it personal. You don't know what they've experienced, up until then. I had no clue of how many meetings she was in before I showed up. And how that meeting began with already conflict in the air. There's no sense to adding to that. And you'll see that over and over again. You'll hear some people, teachers say, this child does this child does this. They need to vent too. And so they're venting, but don't take their venting as solid ground every child I've ever met wants to learn. No child wakes up in the morning and says, put me on a bus so I can go fail today because that's
Right.
what I want to do. No child does. But I would let you know that the majority of kids you're going to see are failing. That's why you're there. There's some deficit that's not being addressed the way it needs to be addressed. And you have the education, you have the knowledge to figure that out and get some supports in there to see success. And so, yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
She was my supervisor, and during my time there, like, it was the amount of knowledge she just had, every little thing. Like, I even know how to kill a wasp because of her. Like, I know to do to turn off the light, like just little things that she would always point out. So she's very well-rounded in her ability to know things about a lot of things. It's kind of off the grid, but like, I just really appreciate how she's just so straightforward and upfront, but also very caring and understanding about the roots of everything, and like just very aware of reading situations and understanding where to go from there.
And it probably just is more life experience than education. And sometimes, life can throw things at you. Trust me, life is going to throw things at you. Take it for the learning experiences it is. What you don't know, what I didn't say in the intro, is that I was raised in inner city Detroit. I've gone, you wouldn't even know the amount of people I know that have died in inner city Detroit through violence. I can recall that feeling of not ever thinking I could get out of that situation. Things in the suburbs were priced so high, so far from what my wage was, that to get out of that situation seemed absolutely hopeless. Like the whole world was geared up against you. And I know for a fact that many inner city people that live there right today feel that exact same way. And so they feel that society is geared against them moving from their position into a higher position. And that is hopelessness. And so what you need to provide is that piece of hope that, yes, I hear you. Yes, you are important. And I'm in your life in this moment, and we're going to get through today. And so those are real strong understandings that go so far in the life of kids and parents. So
thank you so much for
thank you so much for your time.
Really,
I miss you guys. Come on. How you been, Vanessa? Oh my goodness.
I've been good.
You look great.
The first day of my job, Miss Gage, I was like,
we were so excited. We were all around the phone going, "Yeah, that's Vanessa. She's gonna be so good."
Meanwhile, I'm crying. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared. What have I done?
Right.
And what did we say? It had to be something like, "You've got this.
Yeah.
You've got this. You know everything." And that's what I would say to every one of you. If you have made it this far, you already know what you need to know. Right. You just have to be strong enough to implement it. And there are going to be challenging times. You are going to have very strong ideas coming from other people that go against what you know. And whether it be that child that's in there that all of a sudden is just bad, sometimes, and Vanessa, I probably said this to you too, sometimes it just takes one person.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes one person. Everybody else would not like to bash on the child, okay? They would really want to see some positive things, but when negative feeds on negative, it tends to go very negative, surprisingly. Sometimes it takes that one positive person to come out and say, there was an issue here, but this is how we addressed it, and and here's the success we have seen. So,
Mhm.
it's quite possible that maybe we just need to address this issue more, and we'll get more positive response. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, yeah, well, somebody else saw something positive too, and somebody
Mhm.
else saw something positive. Sometimes you're going to have to be the first person with positive ideas, but
Mhm.
stick to them. Stick to them.
Yeah.
They work.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much for
much.
joining us, Miss Gage.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
we
thank you for
appreciate
thinking to have
I would love
me.
to have you back on a future
Yes,
episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. We've got
And I
so
will
many
be
things we could
using
talk.
that quote
Now,
from you that
pardon?
Native American English was created in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I will be.
You know, I've said that on multiple times because I've learned that from Michigan.
Mhm.
I've tried to look it up because I want research behind it. I have not been able
Right.
to find the research. However, everybody in Grand Rapids, Michigan knows this, so they
Mhm.
brag about it. But
Well, thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
Bye,
So
Gage. We'll see you soon.
bye, guys. Oh, it was so
Bye.
nice. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay, that was great. All right, thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of 8% Roundtable Discussions. Next month, we're going to try to have our next perspective is some male SLPs. We know that's pretty rare in this field, so we're going to try our best to have a really great discussion, and we will see you then. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. And thank you all for all the support that we've gotten so far. We truly, truly, truly appreciate it. And we hope to interact with you all, learn from you all, and you learn from us as well. So, peace.
Bye.